Okay, I want to finish up our unit on descriptive essays by talking about conclusions. As you get ready to finish up your paper, you have probably already written your body paragraphs. You've already been working on your introduction, hopefully. And so now the last thing that you have to do is to write a conclusion. So remember in So What in the 7 Common Moves that we learned that conclusions, successful conclusions, tie everything together. They create a sense of closure. They do not include or bring in new material. They don't leave the reader with any unanswered questions. And then they use one of those gimmicks to kind of go out in style that we talked about in our slides on the 7 common moves. So that could be anything. That could be leaving the reader with a powerful image, a powerful statement, a revelation, returning to that gimmick that you used in the beginning to kind of opening, kind of closing the loop, and framing the whole essay, or just being a reflection back on your essay. Remember that you need to restate your thesis in some fresh new way, not like word for word, but just address your 3 objects in this particular case and restate your thesis. So let's look at a couple of examples of essays that have pretty weak conclusions. These are the same essays that I showed you at the beginning, the introductions to. I just wanted to take a look at a couple of them. So this one is about Uncle Frank's cabin, and we had the 3 objects, which is actually the paper prompt that you were writing. But here's how this person chose to end this. Uncle Frank was an adventurer who loved an adrenaline rush. Most of his possessions surprised me when I heard all the stories that went along with them. Uncle Frank's belongings reflect the kind of person he was. Now, it's not horrible, and it does refer back to the thesis. It doesn't include any new information. It's just kind of bland, re-identifying the 3 objects or the belongings that you're going to talk about, making that personal connection. It's kind of like the person kind of ran out of steam before they reached the end of the conclusion. Here's this one. This is the one about my father's sty, if you remember from the introductions. And we talked about it kind of had a negative connotation from the very get-go. Despite the few times the house was put on the market but then taken off, my father was never willing to leave his homeland. There was the den, dim and comfy by nature. The brown walls and brown couches were anything but boring when the main attraction of the room was the 60-inch TV just inches away from our seats. The common place you would find my father, slumped back and shirtless, gazing into his vast-sized computer screen. Do we have any fill in the blank with any of his favorite junk foods? He would inquire before even checking to see himself. These were the things that irked me the most, however. They were the things that made my father the exceptional person that we adore. Very strange here. Well, good morning. What you have here is you have a lot of detail and information in the conclusion. It almost feels like a body paragraph. It also, which you wouldn't know this if you hadn't read the whole thing, but includes new information too. It kind of deviates away. Here this essay was talking about her father and his home and whatnot, and you have all this extra additional information. It's kind of like overkill right at the very end. This one, I'm going to have to zoom out for you to be able to see. Okay, so this one is the one about the bus ride, and I just wanted to show you just something at the end. So she does a good job of saying, I learned some of life's most important lessons. She restates 3 of the lessons that she talked about in her essay, which is a good formula to follow. But the last line, okay, maybe they weren't quite so important, but I learned them nonetheless. And so the miserable adventure began. It's just very awkward. It almost is cyclic, where it like takes you back to the beginning and it's not necessary. Remember, close out the essay, provide a sense of closure, so that your reader has no unanswered questions. This is a good one, and I wanted to include this one. This is the last one in this set. This is the one about Mason Hall, the music, the introduction where the girl sits down and she's trying to write her paper or something, I can't remember, study. And all around her, music comes. Kids start playing music around Mason Hall at JSU, and something strikes with her. And I like the way that this closes because it has a good sense of closure. It has a good gimmick going out. I'd been sitting there for over an hour, yet it was as if I'd only been here for merely seconds. At that moment, I realized that I had no idea who the saxophone player, the trumpet player, or the young girl was. Those are the three things that she talked about in her essay. I wanted to ask them, but I was just an observer. I was a kid trying to write our first paper of the year, but instead, I experienced the world being brought to life by music. Now, I knew why, or know, should we know, why people say Mason Hall is where music comes to life. That's a good, solid conclusion, ties everything together very neatly, leaves no unanswered questions. You want to shoot for that in your conclusion, where you tie everything together, remake that connection with your three objects and the person, place, or event that you're discussing, and close out on a high note. Leave your reader completely satisfied with your paper. So if you have questions, or just shoot me an email, and I look forward to reading your essays on Thursday.